Hi, it's Ben from My Cycling Coach. I hope you're well and that you're having a great day. Just doing a bit of an easier spin indoors today after some climbing efforts I did yesterday. Bit of threshold work. So yeah, just shaking the legs out indoors today. Like to do these rides inside sometimes just because I can really control that nice constant intensity in those lower zones. Anyway, I wanted to do a video on the page today as I've been speaking to a lot of riders over the past few weeks who have been saying they've been suffering from cramp and the bonk on some of the longer endurance rides they've been doing at the weekends. Now, a lot of these riders have got some longer sort of sportive events planned that they're doing this summer. A few of them are doing like coast to coast, and yeah, just some rides and events that do include, 100 miles, 150 miles plus. So doing the right thing by building up that mileage. But as I mentioned, they've been really struggling because they've been cramping up a lot and suffering from the bonk, which is, not the thing we want to be having when you're trying to prepare for that event. May have more training time at the weekend, precious training time, and if you're really suffering from cramp and getting the bonk and not being able to complete that ride or maximise the benefits of these longer rides, then it's obviously having a real detrimental effect on your training. So I've got 3 quick tips today that can really help you avoid getting cramp but also suffering from the bonk. So yeah, we'll get straight into it. First tip is hydration as part of your rides. I'd say 90% of the riders that I speak to who say, you've been suffering from cramp, getting bonk on the ride, really low energy levels, 90% of them are dehydrated. They're really not taking on enough fluid. So as a real sort of basic fluid intake, you want to be aiming for 1/2 litre an hour as part of any ride, really. Certainly any longer endurance rides that I've mentioned, even from 100 miles, 150 miles, 1/2 litre is a minimum intake. But this can then also be influenced by, sweat rates, the intensity of that ride. So 1/2 litre really is just a basic amount for, low intensity exercise. So if you're riding at zone 1 or zone 2, that 1/2 litre should be okay. You're not sweating too much. But if this ride then, might have some climbs in it, or does happen to go up to a bit of a higher intensity, or you're just maybe riding on a slightly warmer day and you do start to sweat more, you may then benefit from pushing that hourly fluid intake up to, 750 millilitres an hour in some cases, if the ride is really intense, or it is quite a hot day and you are sweating a lot. You may even want to push this up to 1 litre an hour. So yeah, hitting those intakes, 1/2 litre as a basic minimum, but then adding to this based on the intensity of the ride, the sort of ambient climate temperature. Because dehydration, if you are suffering dehydration, then the heart stops pumping as much blood to the periphery, the working muscles. This is where then those muscles aren't getting as much oxygen. They're not getting the key nutrients they need to support the exercise you're doing. And this is where that cramp and then the bonk can all start to occur. So that's tip number 1, hydration. Make sure you're hitting those intakes. Tip number 2 then is really looking at your fueling. Again, I'd say almost 90% of the guys that I speak to say, been suffering from cramp. Obviously the bonk, which is where, you will what we call go into that glycogen depleted state. This is where the muscles aren't getting enough fuel. You're not fueling the engine enough. So again, some basic intakes that you can really try to achieve to avoid that cramp and the bonk happening. If it's a 100-mile ride, I'd be saying a minimum of 60 grams of carbohydrate an hour to support that ride. Make sure that you've got enough glycogen in the muscle, in the liver to support the ride you're doing. You can achieve that 60 grams of carbohydrate however you want. It might be, taking on a bar an hour, taking on some gels, taking on some maybe homemade products that you make, granola and stuff. There might be a cafe stop in there somewhere. You know, carbohydrate powders in your bottle are also a fantastic way to achieve this. But I would really advise that, you know, for a ride of 100 miles or more in length, that 60 grams an hour is absolutely crucial. And if you haven't been taking this on, then this could be a real sort of turning point in your performance. If you start to work on incorporating those amounts into your ride, you will notice a massive improvement in your performance. So hourly carbohydrate intake, 100-mile ride, really try to be around that 60 grams an hour. That is just going to ensure that you're fueled, the muscles have got enough glycogen, carbohydrate available, you know, blood glucose levels will stay where they need to be, and you'll be able to complete that ride and feel like you have enough energy. Tip number 3 then, finally, is looking at your electrolyte intake. So cramp can be as a result of, you know, low electrolyte levels. So these are looking at things like your sodium, potassium, calcium and magnesium levels, and really ensuring that you're keeping those topped up through the ride. So one thing you can do, just without having to really supplement it, is just ensure that your meals, you know, leading up to the ride do include some of those electrolytes that I've just mentioned there. But you then may find that you do want to supplement some of those on the ride itself. So there are lots of things out there, including, you know, the sort of energy powders that a lot of the sports nutrition companies do, that will have those electrolytes in. Another thing is the tablets. You may have seen these that you can put in as well in your drink, in your bottle, that will have high amounts of, you know, sodium, potassium, calcium and magnesium in them. Again, to support that muscle. You know, sweat rates can also influence this as well. Obviously, the more you sweat, again, the more you're sweating out those electrolytes, so you really do need to replace them. So yeah, 3 quick tips there that really should help you. You know, if you haven't been doing some of those things and you have been suffering from cramp or getting the bonk as part of your weekend longer rides, I guarantee you if you implement those 3 things, you should feel a massive difference. So just to recap, it's firstly, hydration, minimum half a litre an hour. Push this up if you need to based on some of the things that I've mentioned. The second is the fueling. It's a long ride, 100 miles, 60 grams of carbohydrate an hour. You will really feel a difference. And finally, those electrolytes, really making sure that your meals leading up to the ride do contain these, but then also you can supplement these on the ride itself as well. So yeah, hope you found some of those tips useful. Give them a try. If you did find the video useful, please drop a like on it. Feel free to follow, share, subscribe, and any comments, as always, we'd love to hear from you. Have a great day, enjoy your riding, and speak soon.